So as we've been hearing more and more about the Nintendo Switch 2 that may be coming out this year, it might have PS4 level graphics, and honestly, I think that's fine. You know, little haggis, the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out soon.
Does it have PS5 graphics?
No, it's gonna have PS4 graphics, little guy.
It's garbage.
Ugh. Seems that people have forgot what a PlayStation 4 is really capable of, so maybe it's about time we remind them.
It's a pretty famous fairy tale.
Where is everyone?
Who cares? What do you mean, who cares? All those games are awesome!
And they're on 10-year-old hardware! Get with the times, butthorn!
Oh, shut up, little haggis. When we stop to think about it, a PS4 has really good graphics, sure. It came out in 2013, 2014, around there, but the graphics still hold up really, really well. I mean, you go back and you look at a bunch of PS4 titles, and a lot of them look really, really good. Like God of War Ragnarok is pretty much indistinguishable from the PS5 version of it. Any way you slice it, the PS4 has really good graphics, so why are we even the least bit concerned that the Switch 2 would have PS4 graphics? You say that, and I say a PS4 on the go. Yes, please. I will take that. That is an automatic W. I don't think there's any reason to drive ourselves crazy over the fact that a Switch 2 isn't going to be as powerful as a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or whatever. Because, you know, you look at those newest consoles, they aren't really all that great. The jump from graphics from a PlayStation 4 to a PlayStation 5 really isn't all that noticeable. I have a PlayStation 5, but I can't say I really noticed that big of a difference in graphics from the PlayStation 5 to the PlayStation 4. I'm sure if you do a side-by-side comparison of a PlayStation 5 game next to the PS4 version, you'll see a difference, but in isolation, I don't think anyone's really noticing. And even when you are doing a side-by-side comparison of the graphics of a PS4 versus a PS5 game, you really gotta look, and you really gotta start nitpicking to find the differences. It's really getting to the point where graphics don't seem like they matter so much anymore, because we're getting more and more diminishing returns from each subsequent jump in technology. I mean, think about it. Atari to NES, NES to SNES and Genesis, and then those consoles to the N64 and the PlayStation 1. All marvelous technological leaps. And then the N64 and the PS1 to the PlayStation 2 era, another technological leap. And then the PS3 era and beyond, all technological leaps. And the last really good technological leap, I would say, is probably the PS4. But even the jump from the tail end of the PS3 and Xbox 360 era to the PS4, it wasn't a huge jump, but it was still a pretty big jump. But now, I don't know that we're really seeing that big of a jump here. I don't know that I would say we've reached maximum realism or anything like that, because we're still getting games where we see a lot of uncanny valley face animation, like in Spider-Man 2. It's a fun game, but a lot of the face models are kind of jacked up. Like the teeth look all ghoulish, and some of the characters don't look natural at all. In some cases, I would say that these characters looked better on the PlayStation 4 in the original Spider-Man game from 2018. But, you know, despite those shortcomings and how very much I hate the Tom Holland-esque face model from Spider-Man 2 that they used for Peter Parker, it doesn't dampen my enjoyment of the video game. I still really like Spider-Man 2, and I feel like it's a fun game to play because the gameplay rules and the storytelling is there. And maybe that's the takeaway for video games going forward. Maybe we don't need to worry as much about graphics as we have been in trying to drive forward this graphics arm race that's been going on for generations. More and more, we've been seeing indie games being put out with fantastic quality, but the graphics are not advanced at all. They are very much stylistic and backwards, you might say. In Signal's case, it's one of the best survival horror games I've played in recent memory, but also it uses PlayStation 1-esque graphics. And that one has a fixed top-down camera that alternates with a choppy first-person mode, and it doesn't even have any voice acting, it just has text on the screen during cutscenes. But still, what a fantastic video game! I loved my experience playing Signalis, and I played a quote-unquote downgraded version of the game on the Nintendo Switch, but still, it didn't matter to me because it was so good. Another video game that has even more primitive graphics than Signalis is Faith the Unholy Trinity, which is one of the scariest video games I have ever played, and it has Atari-style graphics. That's literally all it has to work with, is Atari-style graphics and a little bit of rotoscoping, and boom, there's the video game. Not only that, but it has the most simple interface you could possibly imagine. You move around with the arrow keys, you bring up your cross with the space bar. That's all you need to play the game, and it doesn't get much simpler than that. So maybe we're really overthinking what constitutes a good video game in 2024. Maybe it's okay to scale back and have graphics that are quote-unquote worse. If there's anything that I have learned from years of playing video games, is that good graphics do not a good video game make. And I think that with graphics more or less peaking, that it's time to focus on the things that are really important, i.e. storytelling and gameplay. And as far as graphics go, I think that stylistic choices should be made according to what you want to make. It doesn't always have to be realism, and even more realism, because variety is the spice of life with video games. Realism does not suit every video game, and it shouldn't, because there's many valid design decisions you can make, like making it look cartoony, or making it look like an Atari game, or making it look like it was on the PlayStation 1. Or maybe hyper-realism suits what you want to do, in which case, fine. But I really hate to see all this talk about the Switch 2 devolving into we're somehow getting an inferior console. I mean, my dude, we're talking about a PlayStation 4 on the go. And somewhere in that conversation, we're bringing up the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, neither of which are all that impressive. I guess at some point we could supposedly see a video game that pushes the hardware to its limits, but it's been about 4 years now, and we really have not seen it happening. And that is something to keep in mind here. We're coming on to the 4th year of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and there really aren't that many games. There really aren't that many things that are all that impressive on these consoles. We're seeing a handful of cool games here and there, but it seems like most of the good games now are on the Nintendo Switch. Huh? Little Haggis, what happened to my Nintendo Switch?
I threw it away!
What do you mean you threw it away? It's got so many games on it. I downloaded a bunch of stuff. I've got all these cartridges.
If you're getting a Nintendo Switch 2 and it's backwards compatible, you don't need the Switch.
Ah! Oh, I better go find my Switch before the trash gets taken out. Thanks, little guy.
No problem.
The Switch has an absolutely massive physical library. If you go looking for video games on the internet, you can go on the Nintendo Online Store and find even more digital titles waiting for you. If we're going to worry about anything regarding the Nintendo Switch 2, there's two things that I am particularly concerned about with its release. First off, we really need to see those Joy-Con controllers fixed, because anyone who's played a Nintendo Switch for any length of time, we've experienced controller drift, right? It's just one of those things that goes hand in hand with the Nintendo Switch. It happens on the Joy-Cons, it happens on the Pro Controller. The Nintendo Switch is just prone to drift. And if Nintendo fixes that for the Nintendo Switch 2, it will be the biggest relief I could possibly have. I would not be more joyful. It hasn't been a massive problem for me while I'm playing Nintendo Switch games, but it has been noticeable, and it does get very annoying sometimes. Also, another really obvious one to have that I think a lot of people would love is a solid 60 frames a second. This one I think is a must-have, because 60 frames a second It used to be standard way back when, and really it should be standard now. Now, I'm not delusional. If push comes to shove, they're gonna shoot for a solid 30 frames a second if they can't hit a solid 60 frames a second, but 60 frames a second is really preferable in my eye, and if it means sacrificing some pretty graphics here and there to make it happen, I'm pretty okay with that. And I know I said 2 things, but I guess I'm gonna say 3 things here. It'd be nice if the Switch 2 were backward compatible with the Switch. I will not get my hopes up for that, but if it plays the same type of cartridges, only the Switch 2 may have larger size cartridges in terms of storage, I think that'd be pretty cool if we could just take our old library and bring it on to the Nintendo Switch 2. If the console is just going to be an iteration and not revolutionary like it's implied to be, I don't know, it kind of makes good sense to just have it play the same type of cartridges and be able to play the old library. Not to mention, if people just got a Nintendo Switch and a bunch of Nintendo Switch games, they might not feel as ripped off if a Nintendo Switch 2 comes out and it's able to play the same games. And those are some of the things that I think really matter on a Nintendo Switch 2, not just having the prettiest graphics possible and matching the power of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, which, if that even were possible, don't you think that Sony and Microsoft would already be doing it? Even the Steam Deck is about at the level of a PS4, and no one really complains about that. And if Nintendo releases the Switch 2 and it's got similar battery life, then really, it's just the Steam Deck again, but it's Nintendo branded. So again, I say, why are we complaining? It seems like Nintendo's just putting out a fairly affordable console that's got an upgrade in power and capability, and this seems like a W with PS4 level graphics. I guess at $400, yeah, it's like $50 more expensive than the Nintendo Switch is, but that doesn't seem like it's all that bad of a deal. I guess I hear $400 and part of me wants to hem and haw over it, but then I think about the Nintendo Switch and all the time that I have spent on it, and I play my Nintendo Switch way more than any other console I have in recent memory. I think I might have played my Nintendo Switch more than my PlayStation 4, and I've played my PlayStation 4 an awful lot. I definitely played my Nintendo Switch more than my PlayStation 5. My PlayStation 5 barely gets any action, and I like it, but I don't like it like I do the Nintendo Switch. So Nintendo Switch 2, automatic buy for me. No hesitation on that one. I know it's going to be $400 well spent. And I've got a good feeling about the future because I know we're going to get a whole slate of awesome video games. Whew. Alright. Got my Nintendo Switch back. We are good, baby. Now I just gotta find my Switch games. I don't know, I looked upstairs and they're all gone.
I gave them a Goodwill when you weren't looking.
Oh, come on!